All right. Welcome everyone to the first officer webinar of 2024. Very excited to see you all here tonight. Thanks for being here. I am Kristen Fouts, and I serve the fraternity as the Director of Education and Leadership Development. Some of you might have seen me or heard me at the Virtual Officer Institute a couple weekends ago. Some of you will see me at and other staff at our upcoming Regional Officer Institutes. We just had one in Philadelphia last weekend, went very well. So excited to keep those going in Atlanta this weekend and in Phoenix in a couple weeks. Tonight's webinar is going to focus on chapter financial literacy. If you would stay on for the entire webinar and then complete our post-assessment at the end, I will share a link. That is going to be proof of your attendance. So in the chat pane here, you will find a link to our other webinars that will be happening on a monthly basis. The more you attend, or each one that you attend, is another SOE point. So keep that in mind. Here we go. Posting that link. So as a whole, financial literacy, of course, is a critical component for personal development and for professional development. And when it comes to life in a fraternity like ZBT, every member needs to be familiar, at least at a basic level, about where his dues go when he pays them, both to the local organization as well as to the national fraternity, how his chapter allocates that money that he pays into the organization, why the fraternity carries insurance on him as an undergraduate member, for example. So we hope to answer all of those questions and probably many more over the course of this hour. So it is just an hour. We know that you'll have questions, and I encourage you to ask your questions in the chat pane, and we will get to them towards the end of the program. We'll allow a Q&A session then. My co-presenters tonight are two other members of the ZBT staff, Shelley Laughlin, who is the fraternity's Chief Financial Officer, and Ryan Woloshin, who is our Director of Chapter Support and Accountability. We will all be kind of chiming in at different points throughout the program to provide you our perspectives and various resources. But Shelley is definitely the queen of finance here in ZBT land. So I will turn it over to her to kick off our program.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Like Kristen said, if you could keep your questions to the end, I have a lot to get through tonight. So we'll try to not interrupt and then just leave the questions to the end if you want to type them in the chat too. Be happy to answer those. But to kick it off, my name is Shelley Laughlin. I'm the Chief Finance and HR Officer. I've been with CBT for going on 13 years now. My main area is obviously finances and invoicing, and you probably see my emails for invoices and statements and things like that. But we thought tonight we could kick it off with setting, I guess, the tone for the financial responsibilities that especially finance directors will be needing to know over their term here with CBT. So if we could actually, I'll call upon Ryan if he wants to explain, I guess, the interplay between alcohol policies and our financial implications. So Ryan, if you want to kick that off.
Yep. So hello, everybody. My name is Ryan Woloshin. If I hadn't had an opportunity to meet you or have a conversation with you yet, I'm an alum of our Phi Epsilon chapter at the University of Virginia, and I serve as our Director of Chapter Support and Accountability at the fraternity. And so in that role, I help with all of our chapter support, so leadership development for our executive boards, all kinds of chapter operations things, and then also the accountability side, so also helping to manage a lot of our risk. Alcohol is a part of the collegiate experience, and is at some point part of the fraternity experience, but in how we engage with alcohol, especially on the financial side, is super important to mitigating our risk and a lot of these insurance things that Shelley is going to cover. And our ability to have cheaper insurance is dependent on our ability to follow all of these rules and expectations. So first and foremost, this will be at the front of every single risk management presentation that you will ever have. So if you tell me that you haven't seen it, you're lying to me. because I know that all of you have had to sit through a risk management presentation for your chapters on some level. Chapter funds cannot be used to purchase alcohol. And so this has a lot of liability for your chapter. So, you know, say that you purchase the alcohol for an event, you know, someone, you know, becomes unwell because of alcohol at that event, or some kind of incident happens because of alcohol at the event, because you used your chapter card to purchase that alcohol, we have now opened ourselves up to liability. And so chapter funds, chapter cards can never be used to purchase alcohol. And that's really important for our ability to, you know, maintain, you know, our chapter's health and well-being. And that also includes to ensuring that, you know, our, you know, not only are we, you know, kind of being on top of the alcohol that we're purchasing, but, you know, with chapter funds, but also ensuring that we're not, you know, even if we're doing our BYOB policies, that we're not BYOK, we're not bringing our own keg, and we're not BYOL, we're not bringing our own liquor, making sure that we're following our NIC policies around acquiring kegs, you know, hard alcohol, you know, alcohol above 15%. All of those policies, you know, are also interconnected with our financial controls and making sure that, you know, we're not, you know, breaking the rules and also doubly breaking the rules by, you know, acquiring those things with chapter funds. You know, that is going to be one of your quicker ways, you know, to end up in the doghouse, is that if you're exposing yourself to risk like that, is really going to engage the national staff to, you know, need to put an eye on you, you know, mostly because, you know, those are the things that open you up to potentially, you know, having to be suspended or take a separation from campus, you know, those kinds of things. And our end goal at all times is to make sure that you can continue to operate on campus in a, you know, healthy way, that you can continue to recruit new brothers, that you can continue to do all the things that are awesome, that make your, you know, experience great, and just, you know, in that kind of moderated fun category, and making sure that we're following all those expectations.
Thanks, Ryan. I'm just going to step into the next part of our program here. So I'll be sharing my PowerPoint presentation with you. Let me just admit people too. So speaking in respect to our insurance program, so as you know, part of your fees and dues, the bulk of what you pay is for insurance. So you'll see the liability insurance, the risk management insurance, bonding insurance. So we pay through the nose to cover every single brother in all of our chapters for insurance. But one thing we found, obviously, we have a huge deductible if we incur any liability claims, which we have. So we prepare for that. But something that was developed over the years, and this goes back many years actually. So this program has been in place for, I want to think, at least 6 or 7 years. We had a committee, and it was designed because the fraternity is underwriting a significant portion of our insurable risk. So we had the committee. I was part of that many years ago, and included our president at the time, but they concluded that we should adopt a cost allocation model, and that reflects the likelihood of a chapter to incur an insurable claim. So the time period, it runs with our fiscal year, which is actually from June 1st until May 31st. So it captures any risk management violations, whether it be cited by the campus officials and or the national office. So how does that work? So the cost allocation is based on what we charge for the liability insurance. So if you looked at our fees and dues schedule, you'll see the 198. So an example would be, let's say your chapter had 50 brothers. So we multiply that by $198, which is the insurance cost, times a risk management violation surcharge of 10%. So that surcharge equals $990. So let's say you also had a risk management violation, but unfortunately it also included a bodily injury of one of your brothers. So that would be another 15% that was tacked on for $1,485. So that combined allocation cost would be $2,475, which your chapter would incur. So where would you see that surcharge? That would be on your final fall returning brother invoice. So it's something that we shouldn't have to do, but there's risk involved in everything that we do. So, I don't want to sound like we're preaching here, but everything we do involves risk. It's just mitigating that risk, and we hope and understand that there is a cost associated with that. Moving on. So I'll go into our fraternity timelines and budgeting. So we asked that our chapters start updating the rosters this coming April. So by April, you should know who the graduating seniors are. So we asked that they be removed by August 15th. But you can do that anytime after they graduate this spring, anytime in the summer. But we are asking that you have those at a minimum finalized by August 15th. You will be given one last opportunity, and that's September 30th, because we know not everybody's back on campus and different situations arise, maybe whether there's quarter schools too. So we'll make accommodations for that. But just know we do have a final deadline of September 30th. Those rosters have to be updated because that's what I base my invoicing on. So I'll go into ChapterSpot, which is our database. I'll pull your roster, and let's say August 15th comes around and you had 15 returning brothers. So you get an invoice for 15 returning brothers times the returning brother fee we charge. So let's say between August 15th and September 30th, you had brothers drop, or you failed to remove expelled brothers, or any of those situations. We still give you an absolute deadline of September 30th. Just know after October 1st, there's no more changes. So if you fail to remove those brothers off the roster, you'll end up having to pay for those. If any issues come up, Kim Dolbeer at our office, she manages the database and she's really good at it. So I put her email address in this slide. So feel free to reach out to her anytime if you don't know how to log in or change rosters or having any issues. So like I said, you'll receive one returning brother invoice in the fall. We don't invoice for anything else but that, unless you have new initiates. And we'll invoice those weekly in the event that we capture any new initiates. But other than that, you only ever see a couple of invoices cross your paths. So the returning brother fees, because we do put it on that one big invoice in the fall, just know that you can have a payment plan for that. We're always able to accommodate any payment plan. A lot of brothers and chapters, they like to pay half in the fall and half in the spring. But if you do decide to split it up between fall and spring, we ask that the fall be paid in full by December 31st. And then the other half in the spring, we ask that all fees and dues be paid by March 31st. And just, a reminder with new initiates, we have a 72-hour turnaround. So there's never any payment plans for new initiate fees. And this is our fees and dues schedules. And you can find this in the Resource Center in your MyZBT, as well as on our website, zbt.org. If you look under undergraduates and resources, you'll find our schedule there. I don't know if I have time to break it out into each individual charge, but I'm happy to take that offline if you have any questions. I know one specific thing I wanted to cover. I'll have some chapters reach out to me and they want to understand why they can't be charged the prospective chapter rate. If you see there, the 310 for returning brother fees and then 320 for new initiates. So those prospective chapters, those are like our baby brand new chapters, and we want to see them be successful within the first couple of years. So we'll offer some financial incentive, so it is significantly less than a chapter rate, but just know they can't always stay in the prospective chapter rate. So after year 2, they get bumped up into the 437 for returning brother fees or 488 for new initiate fees, unless they charter before that 2 years. But that's set in stone, and that's how we manage our fees and due schedules. Ryan, you have a question?
I was just going to add, so guys on this call, outside of the risk thing, this is the most important thing that I need you guys to walk away from this call with. All right. You need to figure out how to, if you're not in leadership, to make sure your leadership knows this is a priority. If you are in leadership, you have to make sure that the next board after you knows this. We cannot give you grace if you leave people on your roster because we pay insurance for them. We know it's annoying. We know that you are frustrated about it. We know that it sucks. This is why we cannot do that. We would love to come to you like in October and say, oh, yep, no harm, no foul. You left some people on your roster. You know, you forgot to take them off. You didn't ask for help early enough. Like, we'll cut you some slack. This is why we cannot do it, because we have already paid our insurance premium based on the number of people that we see on our roster. So it is absolutely imperative that you guys follow all of these steps to make sure that if somebody has dropped, if somebody is an alumni now, they've graduated, whatever reason, that you have the accurate people on your roster, right? You know, if there's like tech stuff, like that's what we're here to help you with and to help you navigate. But we have chapters that are adding on debt to themselves in excess of like $20,000 because they're not taking people off the roster. And it's really that easy. Or it's really that easy to ask for help. So, you know, risk management stuff, priority number one. Priority number two, like, please keep your rosters updated so that we don't pay for extra guys and then have to turn around and have to charge you for those extra guys. Like, we don't want to do it. We want to collect what you guys actually owe and not compound all these situations, but you got to do some stuff to help yourself.
Thanks, Ryan. And just on another note, it's become apparent that there may or may not be new initiatives out there that are unreported. If they are not reported in our database, they are not covered under our liability insurance, which is a huge problem. So please get those new initiatives registered and online, and make sure that they're covered under our insurance program. And like Ryan said, we do pay a hefty price for liability insurance. You can imagine the risk involved in insuring fraternities these days and sororities. So we do pay an awful lot of money towards insurance. We pay that out of pocket. So you're essentially being covered before we even collect from you. So we're asking that you follow our timelines with payments. So, you know, essentially what we're doing is being reimbursed for all of the outlay of cash to cover you for liability insurance and then the other insurances as well. So we'll move on. So the fraternity timeline and budgeting continued. So congratulations, you're a new finance director. Now what? So I'm assuming you had a great onboarding experience, and that new or the old finance director gave you all of the information to get access to bank accounts and checkbooks and credits and debit cards. If that's not always the case, just keep in mind that we are here to help you. Do not flounder, do not feel like, you know, this is overwhelming, because we have so many people on staff who would love to help you navigate through this. And we do seminars like this, so you learn all the things you need to know. But having said that too, when you log into your MyZBT under resources, you'll see the finance director manual, and in there, everything is step by step. The fees and dues schedules, even a budget template. So all the things live there. But, you know, if you don't feel comfortable going through any of that, feel free to contact me or Ryan or anybody else on staff, and we'll be happy to sit down with you in a quick Zoom call and go through everything. You might want to review your past budget. If you had one of those, that the finance director was great and had a great budget, you might want to just carry on with that. But if not, we have a great template, which is, again, provided in the resource center in your MyZBT. If you've inherited debt, contact me. You'll know, because all of a sudden you'll start receiving statements monthly and invoices, and you'll be CC'd on those. Please don't ignore those. If there's an issue, contact me right away, or else I'll be contacting you. So either way, let's take care of the past debt. We can work out a payment plan or things like that. We always do. But don't feel overwhelmed if you've jumped into this role and really don't understand what you need to do next. Advisors. So hopefully you have a great advisor who can continue the path of success with your chapter. They can help you if you didn't have great internal controls in the past. Certainly they could. What's an internal control? Things like you're reconciling your chapter's bank account monthly, and you have that advisor looking at all of the money that's coming in, all the money's going out. You've provided receipts for everything, things like that. So the key components of a budget, obviously you have your revenue and expenses. Again, the template is found under MyZBT in the Resource Center. So what is revenue and income? Well, that's obviously everything you collect, not just your dues, but you might have local dues that you're charging to cover your expenses. So just as an FYI, the ZBT, we want to see the fees and dues being paid, the invoices that we charge, etc. So you're collecting to cover those invoices that we've sent you essentially. Anything over and above that, which would be your local dues, we don't manage, we don't get involved with. So those are on you. Just keep in mind when you're doing your budgeting, you're looking at all of your expenses. So obviously you want to have enough revenue coming in to cover all of those expenses. So things like dues and your IFC dues, your social events, etc. So that's pretty simple. We like to see all of our groups having a savings. So make a rainy day account. You know, a lot of our chapters will have something that's called Build a Brick. So maybe in the past they have a savings account in the event that you might have an opportunity to purchase a house. We do have our National Housing Corporation available to you. You pay a fee through your dues actually to cover some of the services that they provide, but we do have a lot of chapters that will do this Build a Brick fund in the event that they can have an opportunity in the future to buy a house. Savings, rainy day account, things like that. Let's say you have a potential new brother and right now he can't afford to join. You might have a bit of savings there allocated that you could help out a brother that wants to join. And also as a final note, your advisors or trustees should be reviewing your budgets with you and your president. And we have groups, actually, all of the e-board reviews the budget as well. Transparency is always key, right? So how do we motivate brothers to pay their dues? Maybe Ryan can chime in on this area,
Yeah.
being that he's a brother.
Yeah, I'll take this and also just want to wrap up the budgeting pieces. A couple other tips. Want to make sure that you shouldn't have, hey, this is our social budget for the spring, right? That sets us up for a lot of potential mistakes in, not budgeting correctly because we're, being able to look at what are all the social events that we do for the year and being able to budget out those programs, program by program so that we can see, what are we spending, are we actually budgeting like towards an objective, which is, our objective is to be financially healthy, or are we just treating chapter dues like, allowance from our parents and that, when it runs out, like hopefully we can just ask for some more and that, the next semester will roll around and, people are paying more social dues. We operate our budgets often, like nothing bad could ever happen to us, right? You're not making budgets saying that, oh, we might like have a really bad recruitment and we might recruit 10 less guys, than we had before. And we might want to do the same social things that we want to do. And, those things might, help us get back to the recruitment number that we want, but now we don't have the funds, right? Or, there's been an accident that happens in our house. We have to repair this, we're totally unbuilt to respond to crises if we don't, not just budget, but like really narrow in how we're budgeting. Also, expanding our financial controls and the budgeting to the entire executive board. I have heard at least double-digit chapter presidents so far in my 90 days here say, oh, the budget, the finances, I'll have to go check with the finance director, and that your entire executive board, finances needs to be a committee that the finance director kind of oversees and provide guidance. But to have one individual on your board be solely accountable for all of the dollars that are coming into your chapters, most of you are running, 5-figure, maybe 6-figure budgets. That is a lot of, potential risk for one individual with very limited oversight. And you need to put in more controls to make sure that the dues that you are paying, actually go to the things that you want them to go to. you know, we have a lot of, we talk about like, some groups that owe debt. A lot of groups will come to Shelley and be like, I paid dues. Like, well, like why do we owe money? And it's because of that kind of mismanagement and that lack of oversight. And you guys should want to take more ownership about how your dues money is spent to make sure that, you guys are a member of a financially sound chapter. Like that should be of importance to you. So with that being a financially important chapter, healthy chapter means that everybody is paying dues. So what is dues? We've covered, and Shelley can send out the graphic after. Your dues are covering all of these different forms of insurance. You're helping to contribute to, really awesome people like me getting to come visit and talk to your chapter, and stuff like that. We're paying for signature programming, we're paying for security fees, we're paying for, insurance. If one of your brothers was to actually embezzle from you guys, we're doing all of this kind of stuff. And so this is everybody contributing to the chapter. That's what your dues pay. What your, local dues on top of that is what your chapter has decided is appropriate. And that is paying for the things that you have, right? Also, the joy of, or not the joy, but the success of, budgeting per program is that also if a brother came to you and said, well, what do my dues go for? Like, what am I really, like, why do I got to pay this? My national dues are 400. Like, why do I got to pay an extra $1,000 on top of that or $500 on top of that? Like, what does that go? You could tell them like it's covering my Tahiti, it's covering our Halloween program, and we provide this, and this. Like you want to be able to make that argument, and if you have an idea of where your money spent, you're able to contribute that. Also everybody contributing to that whole, success, that you're not having outliers, and we shouldn't feel hesitant about talking about dues during the recruitment process to make sure that we're not initiating and bringing anybody in and then like, what, like I owe money? Like, what are you talking about? Like every new initiate should know that they're paying dues and what that number is. And that also there are ways to mitigate that financial cost. So you can set up payment plans, in GreekBill. You can set up payment plans in the other payment systems that you use. We would very much like you to use GreekBill, and Shelley will talk about that. But you can set up payment plans to help people get on pace with that. This has to be done early in the process. Like when you send dues statements out, you should be sending information about payment plans, right? We've had a couple chapter presidents have come and talked to us, and they've shared stories about, brothers that in April will come and they'll be like, oh, can I get a payment plan? And it's like, for what? Like a payment plan for 4 weeks, like until your dues are due in full? But that's a totally different conversation if we're talking about it in August. And we know a lot of people are not as blessed, or have parents with capacity to be able to support their Greek experience. And a lot of brothers pay their own dues with money that they make. And this is an opportunity to, show them some grace there and help them, get on a way to still be a member. And then if all of that is not enough, the foundation offers scholarships for member dues. And this resources are totally underutilized. Like the foundation has more money than available for scholarships for dues than it gives away every year. And it's because people literally just don't apply. You don't fill out this form. You don't write your little essay. You don't tell them how awesome you are to help you out with your dues and stuff like that. And we don't have enough chapters that are promoting those opportunities, and we don't have enough brothers taking advantage of those opportunities. So, part of this brotherly love is that if you are a guy who this is easy for you to pay dues, that your family is covering your dues, or that you work enough to pay your dues and this is comfortable for you. If you have a brother in need that is struggling there, but is somebody who's not shirking this responsibility but is really trying, like you have an obligation to help them find, you know, these pathways. And you need to take ownership of understanding that there are scholarship opportunities and trying to help that brother find them, you know, because, you know, we do a really good job of pushing them out in the email and text messages and, you know, talking to different chapters. But on some level, we know that, you know, you guys don't read your emails so much and that sometimes stuff gets lost. And so, you know, a lot of this is on you guys to help your brother to brother, that if they're struggling with dues, to help them find a way, because I'm sure that they're a good member of our fraternity that fits all of the tenets of the credo, and that, you know, sometimes finances are hard, so we just got to help them. But if someone is willfully avoiding dues and they're not paying dues, they're putting your chapter in jeopardy. They're putting your chapter at a financial burden. They're not meeting the brotherhood quality standards, and you should expel them. You should SBRV them out after you've given them plenty of warnings and opportunities to pay. But not paying dues is absolutely a reason to SBRV people out so that you don't have to pay for them. They are now causing you a burden. They may be the most fun brother that you ever have, that is like the person to be around, that you want to go to Cabo with every weekend if you could, and is, you know, life of the party. But if they don't pay dues, they have hurt your experience, they have hurt your chapter's experience, and it's time for them to go because they're not meeting their obligation that they took in their membership oath. So you need to make sure that you guys are firm with this. And the more that you tolerate guys not paying dues, the more that it will become culture. And, oh, well, you didn't make Johnny pay dues, so why am I going to pay dues? Right? You have to be consistent. You have to hold firm. And if you need help having those conversations, I am here, other staff are here to help you figure out how to have those conversations.
Thanks, Brian. The last part too, consequences for not paying, like Brian alluded to. We have partnered with a company called Fairway Capital. They are a collection agency, and we will submit brothers into collection agency as a very, very, very last resort. We don't want to go down that road, but unfortunately we do have to, and we will utilize that for collection proceedings. Like anything we do in life, we sign up for it. You sign a contract with ZBT committed to 4 years. That will hold you for the financial commitment. And we do send those off to our collection agency as an FYI, last resort though. So moving on, let me see, collections and Greek bills. So on collections part, I think Ryan's been pretty clear on helping brothers pay what they owe. You can always use promissory notes from them. So one thing we alluded to was our Greek bill services. So we are partnered with Greek bill, but it doesn't mean we're contracted with them in any way like our chapters are. So you sign up with them separately. So you have a contract with Greek bill. They provide a service. So obviously they have that fee that they charge per brother in the fall and in the spring for utilizing their services, because obviously they want to be paid for their administrative services and collections and all of those things. So through Greek bill, it's really easy to use. As a FYI, if you have debt at May 31st, our spring council has mandated our groups to be on Greek bill. So it's imperative if you're not wanting to be on Greek bill. I don't want to see this as some sort of repercussion for not paying. It's actually helpful, but it has proven to us that you can't manage your finances. So you will be mandated to go on Greek bill if you have debt at May 31st. So it can assist you with your finances and your budgeting. It's easy to use, easy to join. I work with those staff, and they've been great and super quick to respond and help you in any way. The nice thing too is it provides historical and transparency information. So if you have a brother that states that he pays, you can log in there and you can see, you know, Brother Smith paid his dues. He has proof too, so he can prove that he paid you, which is nice. So transparency is important, especially as you navigate out of your role and the next finance director comes in. You can hand them the keys to the operations of Greek bill. All the history will be there. Again, it's super easy to use. Tracks all of your members' fees and dues that they pay, not only just the local dues, but also the national dues. And the nice thing about Greek Bill too is that they can file your 990, which is your tax return. And let's get into the tax returns. So Zeta Beta Tau fraternity is a 501c7. We were granted federal tax exemption. I want to think back in 1943. That's just federal tax exemption. So we were given a group tax exemption number. So if you look at a franchise kind of like McDonald's, right? So you have your headquarters, then you have all of the different franchises. So that's our model as well. And all those different franchises or chapters, if you will, have your own federal tax identification number. So having said that, you have to file a tax return annually. So what happens if you don't file 3 consecutive years? The IRS will just automatically revoke that number and you are no longer tax exempt. So you could put the chapter in a situation where they may be liable to pay taxes on anything that you collect. So we never want to get into that situation. So I ask that you reach out to me if you're struggling with your 990. For the majority of our groups, you would be filing something that's called a postcard. So that's in that little on screen here, the group I have there, the form 990N. So that's filed by organizations with gross receipts less than 50,000. So that's the majority of our groups, not all, but some of you. This postcard, you log into the IRS website, you have your tax ID number, which can be found in your profile, your chapter's profile in ChapterSpot. Your tax ID number will be there. You put that in and you register. It literally should take you less than 5 minutes and boom, you're done. And you don't need to do that again until the next year. So let's say you have a year end of December 31st. The IRS mandates that you file your tax return 5 months and 15 days after your year end. So that means you need to be filing these before May 15th. Now is the time to start looking into these things and getting it filed and getting that out of the way. Unfortunately, we do have groups that have lost their tax exempt status. So what ends up happening, they'll have to file a plethora of forms to the IRS to get that reinstated. I have seen upwards costs of, let's say you went to a CPA firm, they could charge you $2,500. You may have possible tax implications that you'll end up owing as well. So another reason to use Greek Bill, it's easy to pull that information. If you hired a CPA, you have all of your revenue, you have all of your expenses. So easy to report your 990 through Greek Bill as well. So we have our database. It's a Salesforce product and it's called ChapterSpot. I'm sure the majority of you are all aware of that or should be by now. So I just want to point out that I know I send out individual invoices and statements monthly just to keep everybody informed of what the chapter is owing, especially those individual invoices. But just know that when you log into ChapterSpot, you can look at your chapter's profile and you'll see something that's called statement of account, and you'll see a little hyperlink. So if you click on that, you can easily see anything I've invoiced, credited, even all of your payments that have been made through ChapterSpot. So you don't have to wait until I send out that statement. It's there live every single day. You can take a look at it. If something doesn't look right, please reach out to me immediately and let's have a look at that. So avoiding pitfalls, the do's and don't do's. So Ryan had briefly mentioned misappropriation. So one thing, if you notice on our fees and dues schedule, you'll see something that's called bonding insurance. Well, what is that? That's in another insurance. We pay crime insurance in the event money does go missing. If there is found to be misappropriation on your chapter's account. So we want to make sure, again, I alluded earlier to the risk prevention. We just want to protect you and hopefully this never happens to any of our chapters. So how do we avoid things like this happening? You could have dual authorization. I know some of our checks that we receive at the office, there's 2 signers on there. So you could have your advisor sign the check as well as yourself. Keeping receipts for every single expenditure you have. Again, Greek Bill can help you with that. Have regular audits of your bank accounts, whether it be the president or an advisor reviewing those bank accounts, and document every penny received and spent. Again, I'm just trying to protect you. So you don't ever want to be accused of misappropriation. In my job here, I am heavily scrutinized. So we have a full audit every year. They scrutinize everything I do. So it's important that, you know, you always have that second set of eyes documenting everything and just cover yourself. So what are the repercussions of misappropriation? We will file first and foremost a police claim. So we have to file wherever the jurisdiction may be. We'll file a police claim, and then we'll submit that information to our insurance providers. There could be criminal charges involved. But you know, obviously they'll do their due diligence. In the event money does go missing, you have insurance to cover that. Again, I'm sure none of you will ever see that, but it's provided here in the event, you know, you had a finance director and they just went MIA. Just keep that in mind. So I know this is a touchy subject. Me especially, I constantly send out communications, just our statement on the fact that we prohibit any peer-to-peer payment apps. So things like Zelle, things like Venmo, PayPal, they are 100% prohibited. And here are the reasons why. Peer-to-peer apps make it easier to sue fraternities and sororities. So if you look at some of our liability claims, in the past, you may have passed a hat around and collected $5 from everybody, and you went out and bought a keg, and that resulted, unfortunately, let's say, in a risk management issue, and God forbid a death. But nowadays, if you think about doing something like that, and you have all of your brothers, hey, Venmo me $20 and we'll go buy some liquor, and you know, you have an unfortunate event, everything's discoverable nowadays, right? So attorneys would discover the fact that you sent $20 and contributed to this event. Again, we just want to protect you. So please don't use those applications. And again, we have prohibited them. That means zero tolerance on that. Theft is easy with peer-to-peer apps. We've had finance directors, they collected everything through Venmo and went overseas and went MIA and ghosted everybody. So theft is easy. You don't want to put yourself in that position of being accused of that either, right? So just avoid those. And reason number 3, students and parents receive little protection paying via peer-to-peer apps. So let's say, you know, you wanted to pay somebody by the name of Johnny Smith, and you accidentally sent him $500 and it was the wrong Johnny Smith. And try and get your $500 back. It's not going to happen. So we don't want anybody to be in that position. Students receiving funds are liable for taxes. So the IRS wants to get their paws on all of the taxes they can. So if you are collecting revenue and it's over $600, it will be reported to the IRS and you will personally owe taxes on this. So if you're using those applications, just be prepared to owe a lot of money to the IRS, and you can't fight that with the IRS. They just can't be fought with. So what else? Reason number 5, peer-to-peer payment apps helps chapters circumvent the rules. So as I alluded to, number 1, instances of buying alcohol. So that is something obviously we have zero tolerance on. And also, lastly, chapters are potentially violating the terms of service. So if you think of when you downloaded that Venmo app, did you read all of the terms and conditions? No, of course not. I mean, who reads all of the terms and conditions when we get new apps on our phones? You are violating their terms because there is a business application and there's several steps involved in setting up a business application, but there is no nonprofit application through Venmo or any of these peer-to-peer payment apps. So you're actually violating the terms and conditions. To this date, they haven't developed a nonprofit peer-to-peer payment app that I'm aware of. And regardless, we just outright prohibit them. So what are the alternatives? I've already mentioned GreekBill. You can pay through Chapter Spot. I mentioned that. A lot of groups will collect the money into their chapters bank accounts and they'll send us checks. Also, as a last resort, zbt.org, your website, you can pay through that as a last resort. That comes directly to me and I apply those payments directly onto your chapter's account. And obviously, cash is never an acceptable form of payment. Why? Well, cash goes easily missing. And not only that, protecting yourself again, unless you received a receipt, you could say you paid by cash, but you have no proof. So as far as we're concerned, you never paid your dues. So don't even enter the idea of using cash today.
I was just gonna add on, like, guys, I'm gonna meet you where you're at. Like, I get it. Like, this sucks. This isn't fun. You pay all of your friends on Venmo and Cash App. I pay my rent on Venmo. I get it. I pay my power bill on Venmo. You can't do it here for all of the, legal safety reasons that we just laid out. You're welcome to set up a meeting with me and we can sit there for a half an hour and you can, tell me about how terrible this is. And I'm going to show you how checks work. So if your chapter is struggling to acquire like a checkbook, and figure that out, like, happy to work with you and your advisor to figure all that out. All of you have the mobile check deposit, feature on your banking, because it's now 2024. It's just going to take a little extra step. I know it's slightly more annoying than Venmo, Cash App, and all that kind of other stuff, but it protects you, protects your chapter. Another thing that, often we've seen when we've run into this issue, that a finance director had the chapter card linked to their personal Venmo account to make these like reimbursements and stuff like that, which is like a whole other slew of liability and, potential for, bad things. Just again, we want to trust that every single person that we recruit, and especially every single man that we put into a leadership position, is honorable and is going to follow over all the tenets of the credo. Money does weird things to human beings, and there's, thousands and thousands of years of history that documents that, and that people make really wild decisions when money is involved, even to people that they love. And so just setting yourself up to never be in that situation and to have multiple checks and balances on your finance is going to make sure that you don't put someone that you otherwise love in a really temptation filled position for them to potentially make a bad decision, right? We want to put our brothers in positions to succeed. And even if we want to trust them to all do the right things, sometimes it takes us, adding on some extra layers of accountability to make sure that we get there in the end.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan and Shelley. There are a couple pieces that I want to go over briefly, and then we will open it up for Q&A. So today is January 31st. As many of you might know, today is marks the end of the 2023 Standards of Excellence season. So looking ahead to 2024, know that Standards of Excellence points are not going to change significantly. Some of you who are at President's Leadership Academy or who have talked with staff since then might know that we are rolling out a new platform to submit Standards of Excellence points. We'll be sharing more about that in newsletters and whatnot soon. But there are several points in Standards of Excellence related to your chapter finance, your budget, etc. So again, these are things that your chapter should be doing normally, regularly. And so by starting now, by documenting some of these things now, and keeping track of those over the course of the next few months, they are fairly easy wins for SOE points. So what I'm going to share here is it's the 2023 packet. So it's the current packet. Again, the language is not going to change significantly, but all of these points fall under the integrity category. So for example, as Shelley mentioned early on, review your budget each semester with your entire chapter and vote on it. So having your membership review the budget and vote on the budget shows that transparency piece that Ryan mentioned. Make sure that folks have the opportunity to ask questions about, well, why is $5,000 going to, programming and only $10 going to, to social? You can ask those questions, right? And kind of understand the finance directors and the rest of the executive board's sort of direction and opinion on things. So present the budget twice a year to the chapter and vote on it. Send in terms of SOE submission, send in the minutes from that meeting showing budget was reviewed, any questions that were asked, and then the vote and it was approved. Some chapters highlight it. That's even better for me because I don't have to scroll through pages of minutes to find it. Another piece, part of your budget, and again, Shelley alluded to this, part of your budget needs to show that your chapter allocates at least 3% to savings or to that rainy day fund. So this is not just that you have like a separate, officer budget that is that amount, or don't just send me a picture of your bank account statement. That's not enough for me. I need to see in your budget that it specifically indicates that this is your reserves, this is your savings, this is that rainy day account. Again, it should be 3% on an annual basis. Also, submit your tax exempt status, that 990 postcard, just a quick screen capture or scan it or something, take a picture of it, submit that. That's a point. Show your or submit your dues collection plan. So that's for some chapters, that's an outline of, if they are 30 days past due, this is the follow-up that we do, this is the consequence. Maybe it's a additional, like a small percentage of a fine. 60 days, this is what we do. 90 days, this is what we do. The consequences that Ryan mentioned, outline those in a clear policy statement, upload that for SOE, and that's your evidence for that particular point. Again, if you're using GrigBill, all of that is also included because again, the collections go automatically through that process. Finally, sit down with a chapter advisor, a financial planner, an alumnus who is a financial planner or accountant. Sit down with them on at least an annual basis, if not each semester, and just kind of review how your budget's going, review the overall health financially of your chapter, document that again in some notes, or take a picture with your financial planner showing that you're going through your budget. That's fine. That will get you points. So right there, that is, I think, 5 or 6 different points that, again, you can fairly easily accomplish through the normal operations of your chapter. The last piece that I want to talk about are just educational resources related to, again, the finances of your chapter. So we have a variety of digital resources available for chapter officers in MyZBT. If you've never logged into MyZBT, I definitely encourage you to do that. There are a variety of different processes and resources in there, from updating your chapter roster, keeping your personal information up to date, shopping for merch, and of course, reviewing our different digital resources. Click into Plaid, and that will give you a range of different things, digital or virtual courses, as well as PDF resources and whatnot. Fraternity policies, financial practices, tips for your philanthropy or service chairman for doing fundraiser and donor drives, how to support our various philanthropic partners, how to hold members accountable for dues, etc. We have resources in there about that. I will say, if you are looking for a specific training course or module or a PDF about something and you don't find it, email me, call me, text me. I have the ability to be able to create those resources pretty easily. The rest of our team collaborates on those. We want to make sure that you have the support that you feel you need to be successful, to be able to answer the questions that your brothers have about finances or really anything else to do with chapter life. Shelley mentioned the officer resources page on the ZBT website. At the bottom of that page, there are some sort of drop-down sections where you'll find important forms related to expulsion, disaffiliation, reinstatement. All of those affect your bottom line, right? The updated schedule of fees and due dates for various procedures, not just finances. Those are all on the bottom of that chapter officer, the officer resources page. I'm actually going to put a link here in the chat. Also on that page is where you can find all of the other webinars that we're doing this semester. So be sure to check those out, register for other webinars. Again, each one that your chapter participates in is another SOE point. One last resource that I'll point you to, even, of course, we want your chapter to be utilizing GrigBill. Hopefully you've heard that in a variety of different ways tonight. Even if you're not, the GrigBill and Bill Highway websites have great resources, blog posts, templates, forms, etc., that you can utilize. In fact, I was just, checking out some of their posts. They talk about how to motivate members to pay their dues. Of course, they posted a lot during the pandemic about having a virtual membership experience and how to, you know, kind of maintain your financial stability through that time period. Even though we're on the other side of it, hopefully, we're still seeing some of the sort of the effects of it, and still trying to kind of draw money out of, you know, folks that graduated years ago. And we know that that's really tough. We're seeing that a lot with chapters that on their delinquent accounts are a lot of alumni. And it can be really hard to get money back from those folks after they graduate. So we have put a lot of information in front of you tonight. Thank you for sticking with us. We definitely want to open it up for questions. We will stay on for a few extra minutes if we need to, just again, so that you feel supported and can get those questions answered. There certainly might be very specific chapter specific questions that are best addressed offline. Again, I know Shelley or Ryan or I would be happy to take those questions, and, you know, maybe schedule a call with you tomorrow or at another time that's convenient. As we open up the chat pane, I will also post the link to the post assessment. So go ahead and start to work on that. It should just take you a couple minutes. But again, that is your link to, or excuse me, your proof of participating tonight. So while I get that in the chat pane, feel free to ask your questions. Either type them in there or we can call on you as well. London, I see your hand raised. Go ahead and yeah,
Hey,
you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Can both you and Ryan put your phone numbers into the ZBT Financial Directors chat? I know Shelley's is already in there.
Sure.
I'd like to have all three of them accessible to everyone, all 80
Yep.
some odd chapters.
Yep. Ryan, are you good with me posting yours in there? Okay. Or unless you want to do it. Yeah. Thank you, London.
Thank you guys. That's all I had.
Okay. Other questions? And that actually brings up a good point. Yes, there is a financial directors GroupMe. There is a GroupMe for every executive position. So if you are the program or a Brotherhood Development Director or president or, you know, other executive board positions, we have GroupMes for your position. So if you don't have access to those, we can certainly get you connected to those. Right, I don't see any coming in, but we'll sit tight for just a minute. So again, complete that post assessment, and then you are welcome to hop off. Again, thank you so much for being here tonight. We appreciate your time.